Quorum agenda was properly posted.
Yes.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, any public appearances?
Nope.
All right. We will move on to discuss the minutes of the joint meeting of Village Board Trustees, Planning Commission, Planning Commission, and Community Development Authority of October 12, 2015.
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Second.
John second. All right, we have a motion, a second, to approve the meeting of the Village Board of Trustees, Planning Commission, and Community CBA, October 12, 2015. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Abstain. Sorry. Forget you were here, yeah. All right, discuss the minutes of the Village Board meeting of October 19th, 2015. I'll sign it. I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Get a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the Village Board meeting of October 19th, 2015. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Motion carries. Presentation of the board. Presentation of the Wisconsin Rugby Club and Cottage Grove Chamber of Commerce regarding the proposed clubhouse on Rugby property in Bakken Park. So, all right.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the board having us tonight. I'm Mike Millage, President of the Chamber of Commerce here in Cottage Grove. Also run a business here in Cottage Grove. So Bob Buchanan from Madison United Rugby and myself are here tonight to talk to you a little bit about where this vision is at in Cottage Grove. So some updates in the last probably 2 years. Some exciting new developments and what we're looking to do going forward into 2016. So I'm going to let Bob run through about 10 slides. I'll come back and talk a little bit about locally why we view this as a benefit, and then wrap it up with questions.
Great, and I'm going to be 10 minutes or less, which is, for some of you, seems unusual. I wanted to start out with this slide just because this is actually a compliment to Kim Manling, Steve Cohen, the village board 9 years ago, the rugby board. I really wasn't involved at all at this point. Really didn't know much what was going on. I was an alumnus. But what happened is they operated under a short timeline. They set their aim pretty darn high, but they had a lead donor that was offering $350,000 to help develop a park in Cottage Grove, and they had a short timeline. Rugby Club had to match it with quite a bit of money to secure that $350,000, and their vision went forward. And to be real brief, I think sometimes because they aimed real high and it didn't all work out, when I became involved 6 years ago, I heard the part about falling short personally, publicly, quite often. And I really didn't have anything to do about it. In the consulting world, I just want to use a little humor. They like to call it this. Not my monkey, not my circus. Meaning the part that didn't come through in the beginning really didn't have anything to do with why they invited me. But they managed to build a park. They have great soccer fields. They have an economic impact over $1 million a year. And it's actually financially sustaining just the way it is. So it could remain kind of like the village hardball diamond. All the bills are paid, financially sustainable. They're helping to take care of the soccer fields, but I think the village hoped it would be a whole lot more. And that's when I got contacted. I was contacted by the lead donor. So, an old friend of mine, he not only wanted me to invest money, he said, it's stagnated, I think the village is frustrated, I think rugby's frustrated. And when I showed up, they had done all the engineering, they had invested $1 million. The grass was growing, they had a soccer field, 2 soccer fields, they had 2 rugby fields, and that was it. So there was no fencing, there was no anything. The soccer fields weren't being used, and the rugby fields didn't even have a maintenance plan. So a lot of times, and you're very aware of this as I am, you have to do short-term fixes to get things moving forward, and then you can have long-term goals. So the role of somebody who is a nonprofit board member, we really only have 2 jobs, and a lot of times people don't want to do it. You're supposed to bring the professional knowledge and skills, you're supposed to bring the money. So the bottom line is, the rugby board had people that had great intentions, but they didn't really have a big background on how to develop these facilities, and they really weren't very clear about how to move forward. So that's my background. I worked for the City of Madison, State of Wisconsin, Dane County, the Madison School District, and the University of Wisconsin in those areas for 40 years. And on the bottom, that's my investment. So rather than talk, pie in the sky, I was willing to commit $3 million to this project. I know in talking to the village, this is your world. The amount of staff you have is a small village, the size of your population, the size of your debt, the tax base balance, the involvement of public and private support moving forward. This is the world you live in, and I keep hearing past history, and in my work with other communities, that's not unusual. But in most projects I ever worked for, it's the short-term fix to move forward, right? To fix problems so that things actually operate better. But then how do you do that in a way where you're actually working towards a long-term solution? And, people have vented their frustrations about why didn't the long-term solution happen quicker? This is the reason why. Madison United Rugby, when I showed up, those were their 2 criteria for building the clubhouse. And that was, it has to be financially sustainable and it can't incur any debt. And they were fear of failure because they saw other places borrow money, leverage donations, start something, and then go bankrupt. And they didn't want to go bankrupt. So that's the biggest reason why nothing happened further in Bach and Tucker. And some of that, to be honest, is always financial sustainability is worldwide. I mean, you'd never have to work another day in your life if you were really good at showing communities how to do that. The City of Madison, think of what they invested in Exact Science, in the proposal for downtown. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars went into something where they were going to take a risk and they had a vision for the Capitol Square and it was going to be great. And today Exact Science has said, you know what, we aimed really high, we fell short, and now we're going to improve the campus in Research Park. We're not going to build a building on the square. Well, it'd be real easy to say, hey, you let us down. But if you read the media today, Paul Fogwin and everybody else says, we're so happy that you're going to stay in Madison. We're so happy that you're going to invest in Research Park. Not like, hey, you guys said you were going to do this and it didn't work out. My job for rugby for the last 5 years is to do this. And it's really research-based. The rugby team had no idea of how to attract investment. And a lot of small communities I work with haven't either. Why do foundations give $3 million to one community and another community doesn't get any? Why do our alumni, which certainly have some deep pockets, why aren't they coming forward and giving more money? Why is there not businesses and people in Greater Dane or Cottage Grove area not part of the process and the solution? I told the rugby team flat out, I'm not working for you if you don't start supporting the community, right? So, even in the beginning, remember this happened real quick. When it came to property taxes, the early correspondence looked like property tax exemption was going to happen automatically. The year I was involved, the rugby team got a $10,000 bill. They had 2 years back taxes that they owed. They went, well, we're federally tax exempt. And I went, no, you're not property tax exempt. You're federally tax exempt. So let's go through the process if that's what you guys want to secure. So it's taken 5 years in the organization just to see them that this is the most important slide. And the last one is, if you don't show innovation, something that hasn't done somewhere everywhere else, and inspire people, well, then you might as well fold your tent, and the rugby fields will just stay 2 great rugby fields, but it isn't going to change out there at all. So we just returned. We did site tours throughout England with the World Cup. I spoke at the International Rugby Conference. I spoke at the European Union Sports Tourism Conference in April. Cottage Grove is on the map. I mean, the branding's already happening. But this is probably the best slide. This is really what should be built at the park. Heatmore is outside of Manchester. It's a big city like Madison. It's in Stockport. Stockport is a little community on the fringe, right? So they were financially sustainable for 8 years. We talked to them 8 years ago when we started out. That's where they got that first design that they gave to the village. They didn't know how to make it work. They just borrowed their design and said, this is what we're going to build out of the ground. What's nice is I was very happy to find out they don't get any public funding. So once it's up and operating, they're financially self-sustaining. They're not using any tax dollars over there. But they do it in a way where they've really gone multi-purpose. And what's nice is the community wins throughout the whole process. And that was my intent from the beginning. The bottom 2 lines, that's Cottage Grove's advantage. Heatmore didn't talk to me, or I would have helped them years ago. They did not have a financially sustainable plan for 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. And if you look around the country, that's always the time. What programming goes on when everybody else is working? I mean, weekends are easy, nights are easier. 8 to 5 is hard. And we took on this problem 3 years ago and tried to do the beginning groundwork to make sure that if we're successful, we've got that problem. It's been nice. The village has been very welcoming to adding spectator seating. Their sports complex, they have 4 sports, they give their left arm to have spectator seating. Right now, we're bidding for the national Maori team for New Zealand, who's supposed to come to the United States and play in Chicago next summer, to be hosted in Cottage Grove. So we're dealing with the Prime Minister and everybody else in New Zealand on your behalf. And we're doing it with the Ho Chunk Nation. And the Ho Chunk Nation isn't a competitor to what I'm doing. I think it'll be very difficult for their sports complex to get off the ground. I think the city of Madison's going to have a hard time coming up with their part. Ho Chunk is going through tribal elections right now. And I actually met with them on designing their complex a year and a half ago. And I said, I'll give you a huge donation. I think this is great. You need density of attractions for all of them to work better. So it's not a threat. And Ho Chunk, there's Indigenous Games. We're bidding on the USA Rugby Sevens to be held in Cottage Grove. That's the style of rugby that will be played in the Olympics in July. So, I mean, what a feather in cap. We don't have bathrooms yet. So, all of this is going to be so much easier when there is a building. Now, how do you get the money? You know, and this is where everybody, and I wouldn't expect the village board to know this, I wouldn't expect rugby to know it. Religion's the number 1 reason people give money. Number 2 is education. But education is also our 8 to 5 hour. So we've had many meetings with the University of Wisconsin trying to get their commitment that Cottage Grove could be like the Hancock Ag Station. And you drive up Highway 51, you see Hancock on the side. Well, for the humanities, they don't have a research station. DW is very excited about it, but we know the financial climate right now. You know, the mortgages gave $100 million matching. They're not going to give part of that pie to Cottage Grove. But there are people at the University of Wisconsin who want this to happen. And that's how fundraising might done.
Just a couple more minutes and we'll leave some time for questions.
Yep, because I'm almost to the end. So, education's the number one way. Here's the second one. If you want foundations like the Goodmans, the Renovon, smaller ones in Dane County, you have to be addressing things that citizens in Dane County are concerned with. And I'm telling you, if you want Dane County to invest some of their funds into Cottage Grove, it'd be nice if the village and the rugby club and Dave Cheslevich from Bike Fed are all going to Parisi and saying, this is the role we could play for Dane County's bike trail system. Can you invest? What could you invest? That's cultivation, moves things forward. So, this is the last slide and I'm done. Action slides are always finding out who are the stakeholders that are willing to do the hard work. We've done 5 years of research. We kind of know the solution, but the solution means everybody's in it together. We've invested $20,000 into the blueprints. We've revised them 3 times. We took them over to the museums in England. We took them to New Zealand. We took them to the University of Wisconsin. We'd like to take it to the business community, to residents, and say, hey, have some input. How, can you see yourself using this? You know, we went to the Lions Club, but that was before we've made the progress we've had. This is the hard one. But, you know, people have done it. Wausau built a $4 million curling club. I met with them. No village money, no foundation money. They did it with resident donations and businesses. Wausau is bigger than Cottage Grove. I get it. But the part the same is they got everybody in the community supporting it together. So if we brought together the stakeholders meeting, and this is what Mike and I have talked about, you know, I'll bring Sarah Kruger. You know, I don't know if you know Fiore Company. Dave and Sarah Kruger played the lead in the ice arena in McFarland. They're good friends of mine. Sarah would love to come out and say, hey, step A, B, C, D, this is how we got an ice arena. And by the way, it's run by a nonprofit. McFarland does not run the ice arena. 2 nonprofits run their ice arena. That's kind of the model we're after. And then, of course, when you get people all going in the same direction, that's when it's possible to attract non-traditional money. So I'm not asking for the village to give money. I'm asking for enthusiasm, participation, the chamber, the village, the residents, rugby, Dane County, University of Wisconsin. And can't guarantee that we're going to be successful, but we have a much higher chance if we're all on the same page going in the same direction. Thank you.
Do I have 2 minutes, Matt, real quick, or what's?
Sure.
Or is that all right? Is that all right, Pat? Okay, so real quick, I don't know anything about rugby. For those of you that know me, I'm way too soft to play rugby. So I really have no vested interest in rugby going on in Cottage Grove. However, when Bob's organization came and talked to me as president of the chamber, I do have 125 businesses that are very interested in a destination like this coming to Cottage Grove. And I've sat through briefings from Vierbicker and Associates, which is basically an advising firm. I've sat through briefings from UW Extension Economic Development Group, telling me that one of the top things that Cottage Grove can benefit from is a destination, something that starts to form an identity. When you say Cottage Grove, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? You know, what is that? For some, it's schools. For others, it's my neighbors. You know, there's not a lot here that really forms that quick identity. And in this, I see a group that has their act together, has done a lot of research, and is very concerned about what the community wants in this facility. So, very excited about it. The purposes of the facility, I hate it called a clubhouse. Maybe that's what they're calling it. It's really a multi-purpose facility. And it's intended to serve Cottage Grove, the UW. Senior services are intended to be here, so very positive. I would view it as a domino. You know, if you get something like this to come to your community and take hold, dominoes start to fall around the community. This brings other people, businesses to the community. So, any questions from anybody?
Well, yeah, I have a question. That is, what's different than, we've been hearing this for over 8 years, and there is already an agreement between the Rotary Club and the village.
Sure.
Much of which has not ever come to fruition. So I think that one of the things you're going to have to address is the fact that we were told at the time when this was all put together, the money's all there, no problem. And I know that because I drafted the documents, and I was there with Steve, and I was there with Kim. And I think that you need to address that with people who do have a memory of those things and indicate how it's going to be different now.
Should I start?
Yeah.
So I have no knowledge, Lee, of this. I've been in Cottage Grove for 3 years, okay? So here's what I would say is different now. Now we're forming a capital campaign. I don't know what was said before, and frankly, I'm not terribly interested. I'm willing to plant a flag in the ground and say, this is for Cottage Grove, it's for the community, and it's the right thing to do. So what we're looking to do, and what I'd ask of the village, is we're forming a stakeholder meeting in December. We're bringing the people together that truly benefit from this facility and launching a capital campaign in 2016. I can't tell you, I can't promise you where that capital campaign is going to go, but I do know that there's no risk that I see to the village on this. We're not asking for, Rugby's not asking for money for the facility, they're not asking for public dollars to run the facility. So, you know, in my eyes, and I think in Rugby's eyes, some things have aligned within various organizations on common goals.
But you need to keep in mind that that the agreements that were entered into, you know, with the village being told certain things were going to happen, certain things would occur within certain periods of time, and that has not occurred. See, you know, I agree with you. You don't want to just go over the past just for the heck of going over it, but that is a question that needs to be addressed. And also keep in mind that where things were allowed to be placed in the park and the land that was sold was based on certain representations that were made. So there's a lot of history that needs to be addressed in terms of, as you're talking about going forward, I think that you're going to have to do some cleanup work in terms of things that have been promised and have not occurred.
Not to divert from that angle, but are you aware that, or is the chamber interested in being part of, Sean and I and Matt have been meeting with Skip Heffernan and Dave Mule and who's the guy from Stantec? Scott Strolich.
Rick Stowe.
About putting up a shelter at Baca Park. And we've also included the soccer club on that to kind of get all of our arms and legs moving in the right direction. Is the chamber interested in being a part of that?
Absolutely. We would absolutely be interested in that. And I think that brings a good point to why the chamber is interested in the overall project. It's the opportunity to be a transformative venture. You know, some people are going to come to Cottage Grove to go to a softball field. Many more people are going to come to Cottage Grove if there's adult education from UW. You know, if there's senior services, if there's international competitions, if there's youth football on multi-use fields and those types of things. So we're supportive of the whole vision in what it can do for the community and for the businesses. You know, that's really why the chamber is interested from a ground standpoint, you know, is to serve the members. And we did a leakage study. I know we're probably way overdone here on time, but through a third party, we basically found that we retain 13% of local dollars here in Cottage Grove. I doubt that's a shock to anybody here. That's very low in Dane County. So all of this is all related in our eyes. This is a opportunity that we're excited about. Back to Lee's point, I think they're valid, and to be honest with you, Lee, I don't really know the history.
Well, yeah, and really that's the reason I'm bringing this up, because if you do, as you try to restart things, you are going to hear this, and so right. I think that for the benefit of trying to make it successful, you need to know what has happened, what's been said, what's been promised, what has and hasn't occurred, because I think that kind of gets you to a point, because you're going to run into that in the community. Right,
and I agree. I just don't want to get bogged down in a finger pointing of what has and has not occurred, because I don't, you know, as a leader of an organization in the community, you know, a lot of times I believe the best is to move forward. So we'll work on that. What I'm asking today from the board, what we're asking from the board, is just to work together going forward. That's it. It's not for money. Love for somebody from the village to be named to our stakeholder meeting in December. I would love if somebody from the CDA, or Public Relations Committee, would be there and be the representative from the village. So,
Is the time set for that?
no, it's TBD. We're kind of working a bunch of people together, so I will follow up with you and Matt on that. And I guess to Lee's point, I'll schedule a meeting with Matt and Aaron and anybody else, and we can talk about the details of what hasn't happened and what we need to do to correct that and just move forward. That's really what I'm about today. And I understand, I don't know what happened before. I was probably in San Diego in the Navy where it was warmer. But we're really.
Well, we're not, I'm not trying to make you be part of the circus, to pick up on what Bob said.
Right.
I just think realistically, you have to understand
Right.
that there is some history, and it's great to move forward, but then let's try to avoid and deal with some of those issues that still are remaining.
And I agree, and I appreciate Matt's input and anybody else's input into how we can make that happen.
Well, and I would say the difference from 9 years ago was lack of knowledge. You had people 9 years ago taking a risk to move forward that really didn't completely know how to do it. And that happens. That's called being an entrepreneur. I wouldn't be still involved if I didn't think that we were going to move forward on research-based solutions. Or, I would have been out of this process a long time ago. My initial intentions were purely to work with the University of Wisconsin. They brought me in because they felt like they had let the process down. So I don't disagree with what happened the first 3 years, but I would hate to have the work that went into the last 5 years not make a difference.
I guess I have a few questions. Have they ever come in front of the board, or have you guys ever come in front of a board for a presentation?
I don't know. I haven't.
Okay.
They were here, to Lee's reference, they were here back in
2008 or 2009.
07 or 08.
Right.
So 2007 or 2008 was the last
Yeah,
time?
somewhere.
The actual agreements, Kyle, were signed in like 2008.
Okay. And you said you had studies. Do you know what kind of tourist numbers that's would bring in?
So what we found in England is that rather than just for the amount of tourists that would come in here, I'm interested in this being financially sustainable, not needing tourism. That's gravy on the top. But for us, when USA Nationals, that tournament, it brought 3,500 people to Breeze Stevens from all over the world. That was one function. Every 2 years, the state high school rugby championships in Cottage Grove. For us to hold USA Sevens National. What's kind of nice opportunity is there are no competing facilities on this level in the country. And they would be if it was easy to do. But it's not easy to do. But you look at the Mallards. The Mallards are hugely successful. They were not the first team at Warner Park. Look how many times businesses start, fail, somebody buys them, and maybe it's the third owner down the line that makes it work. Well, I always feel like I'm like the third person down the line who said, okay, they made a lot of mistakes, they took action without enough knowledge and without enough direction on how to be successful. Let's go talk to smart people. That's why we work with the UW Business School, UW Extension. I may have a good background, they have a better background. We work with the executive director who just did the zoo. It took the city of Madison, I should say Dane County, 20 years to do the zoo addition. But it eventually happened. So when I talk to them, they go, you know what? Shortest time period, maybe 5 years, average 10 years for something like this, 10 years of consistent, unified effort. So that's the one thing I want to make clear. This is not an easy process. But other people have done it.
This building that you showed, what did that have in it when you visited it? What did it consist of?
So what they have are, everybody does the sports part, but really that's not where, I would say look at Lambeau Field, all of the sports development from little places to big are saying you should have facilities inside for businesses to run conferences. You should be able to run multiple social situations. So if somebody rents this part of the building, the banquet hall is, at some point, and I don't want to use the board's time, but the building is set up so that rugby is a 15% user. That's why it didn't work. That's how often they are out there without facilities. Now, can you get rugby up to 30% as a user? That's the highest I've found in the world. That means 70% of the user groups have to be other groups. And what they hear from me until they're tired is that 70% should serve this community, should serve the businesses. And what works in Stockport is everybody who rents realizes the rental rates for holding functions is on the lower end of the market rate. But they know if I'm holding grandma's and grandpa's 50th wedding anniversary in the banquet facilities, I'm not just renting a facility, I'm giving money to education and senior programming, because all the rental helps keep a community facility renting. Why would Landmark hold a business conference there or hold a function? First of all, I have to see if we have a design that's of use to Landmark. And number two, Landmark would be involved because they know it's going to help Cottage Grove and serve their needs. That's the goal.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
When do we go over that history or talk about that?
Well, the first place I'd start would be, I'd be happy to get you a copy of the agreements that were originally signed. I think that's a good place to start. And then I think meeting with Sean and Matt and Jennifer, because they've been kind of working through this process for the last couple of years, would be a good way to go. So.
Like during Parks meetings, you've been talking about this, or?
Yes.
Okay. So I haven't heard too much about this, like in the update section.
We have not met, well, yeah, we met with rugby in July. That was our last meeting.
It's been more so for a parks shelter that the Parks Committee is hoping has happened as a village project, and if it can be a partnership with rugby, great, but that's separate from what they're talking about. They're talking about a much larger
I'd be happy to
project.
sit down with you. More than happy.
So similar, but not in this agreement that Lee's talking about.
Okay.
Well, I know I'll get one to Kyle, but anybody who would like an autographed copy of the agreement, I'll be happy to
I have it too.
make sure that I get it to everybody.
Copy me on it too.
Yeah.
All right.
Send it to everybody.
It's
Yeah,
really, really
good airplane reading, I'm sure. It's
Yes, it's yes.
riveting.
Well, no, I mean,
It is
and
nice.
again, I bring this up because I think that if you go into this without the realization of what led up to it and what's been discussed, what's been promised, et cetera, I mean, you're really going to run into a lot of brick walls that you don't necessarily need to. So.
Yeah, that's why I asked. I just wanted to see what was there and like if it was private meetings or public meetings or what I could reference.
Public
Yeah.
meetings. I mean, we've met, Sean and I met with Bob. How many times we met with him? 3 times.
Recently or
Well, in the past couple of years.
April?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Trying to
Excellent.
get timelines for this building and trying to see when this agreement is going to be fulfilled. We haven't gotten very far.
Okay.
Any unfinished business? New business, discuss, consider directing staff to prepare an RFP for a hotel feasibility study.
Technically, I suppose this is unfinished business, but it's on here under new.
Yeah.
We talked to Dwight and Dale Houston, and they have a study that they did in 2014. They were happy to share that with Matt and myself. The bottom line in that study is that a 68-room mid to upper mid-scale hotel does appear to be feasible in the village. It called attention to a few things, like the village doesn't have its own visitor guide. We're not a member of the Convention and Visitor Bureau, things like that. I think the more productive use of our resources, rather than buying another study that's probably going to tell us the same thing, would be to have me go through that study in more detail, put a list of some of the things we could address, such as those issues, and how and when it would be appropriate for us to address them.
Something like a visitor's guide, generally, those kind of things are put together after you recover some of the room tax dollars, and you have a committee that's overseeing that and deciding how to spend those dollars for tourism purposes. So I don't think that that's a huge negative.
As we proceed on the website, we could have a visitor page on the website, things like that, in the short term until some of that room tax.
Were you able to track down the last one from 99?
The one from 99, it's not specific to hotels. It's the feasibility study for the park as a whole. It does mention, hotels as a use that could or should be in the park. It doesn't get into a lot of detail, and I think anything that's been done since then has been private.
Is the Houston study site-specific, or is it more vague in a sense of
It's
need?
not specifically their parcel. I think it, somewhere in the vicinity of the interchange is what it's
Okay.
geared towards. It doesn't get into the engineering of any particular site and something like that. That would be another step.
Okay. Okay, I think that sounds good.
Do you want a hold on this, or
Just
can we
wanted
just
to
let
table
it
this for
die?
now.
I think I can just start working on it and bring it back when there's something for that.
So it's a motion we table this till the meeting in December, first meeting in December, time? First Monday in December. If you need more of that, we can always table it then, so.
Well, at that point, it's a presentation, right? So really, it's going to go, would that be under his reports or presentations? And this line item of RFP for feasibility would kind of go away, right?
True.
Sure.
So,
It could also maybe be an item for CDA to take a look at before coming back.
Actually, that's probably where it should go, Matt. It's a good idea. I mean, CDA should review it. And
that's next Monday, so you want to.
Yeah.
So it'll be the first Monday, the second Monday in December.
Yeah, we'll have a couple other things for next Monday, and then we can talk to him about this in December.
All right. Our reports from the village board, commissions, committees, finance and personnel committee.
We met this past week and looked over the budget and made a recommendation that you'll be seeing next week.
I can
Do you
add a
wanna
couple things.
go ahead and-
Actually, we just finished the packet for that meeting, which is for November 10th at 5:30. That's the board workshop, and then if more time is needed, we have an open date on November 12th if necessary. So Deb can get you the packets yet before you leave tonight, and if you have a chance to look through it, if you want to schedule individual meetings with me to go through it, that could be beneficial before a week from tomorrow. So that's all I have.
Law Enforcement Committee discussed and consider recommendation from the Law Enforcement Committee to approve the CGPD to participate in the Capital Area OWI Task Force.
Met on October 27th, and under that caption, you'll see that agreement. This is something we've done before. It's an intergovernmental agreement, which is why it's coming to the village board, but the Law Enforcement Committee did recommend approval, and I'll let Lee and Chief Labor kind of elaborate on what that is.
This is based on similar task forces that have been run in Wisconsin, and this would be, I think, the 5th year that the village, whether individually or with the town, would be involved in this. And it seems as if all of the kinks have been worked out of here in terms of any kind of challenges. It's worked pretty well, and in fact, this agreement is basically the same agreement as last year, but I did try to put in some historical background for you and be happy to answer any questions anybody would
Motion to approve the recommendation from Law Enforcement Committee to approve the CGPD to participate in the Capital Area OWI Task Force.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the recommendation from LEC to approve the CGPD to participate in the Capital Area OWI Task Force. Any other discussion?
The only thing that you'll notice is what you see there is the agreement from last year. The only thing Lee really has to do is update the name of the village president in our signature block.
Yeah, yes.
For other people too out there. How long does this go for? Is it
Just a year.
this year?
Yeah.
And it's cost neutral also,
Is
the
it?
overtime is reimbursed, well, it's cost neutral to the village taxpayers, but it comes from DOT funds. So it all comes from somewhere, but
Yeah, nothing's free.
we front the money up front for them, the officers to do this on their shifts at time and a half, and then DOT reimburses the village after the fact through grant money.
I will tell you that if you ever see this in action, which I happen to do as we leave the Esquire after dinner, and I see a Village of Cottage Grove police car around, I'm thinking, what are they doing here? And then I realize it's the task force running, and it's well organized and unfortunate, and it's effective. And unfortunately, there were a lot of people that I know get picked up. So,
And for what it's worth, I've seen it in action when I've been working at Stop and Go.
Yeah, I said, yeah.
And it's amazing the number of people that come in and say, what are all the cops doing in town? And it's like, it's this.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All right, then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains? Motion carries. Public Relations Committee.
So we met back on the 21st, reviewed a number of the RFP responses for the web design. Had a list of questions that needed clarifications that need to go back to all of those vendors. And that's kind of where we stand. We're waiting to get that information back because there were bits and pieces missing from each of them, and they didn't clearly address the RFP that was sent to them on every single one. So we wanted to send the whole list back to clarify before doing an evaluation. Matt, anything else to add to that?
No, I don't think so. So we hope to have the top two firms, have them come and give a presentation to the board, likely in December.
Yeah.
One of the December meetings, probably the second meeting in December at this point.
Yeah.
The process is about 4 to 6 months for them to do the design. So we'd be looking at probably a launch date of the new website late summer. So.
Report from village officers. Kyle?
No report.
Jack? No report. Alex?
No report.
Jennifer?
A quick congratulations to James Giftos. He qualified for the state cross country as a freshman. He didn't get a medal, but it's pretty nice accomplishment. It's his mother Mindy runs the Girls on the Run program in Cottage Grove, so it was a nice accomplishment for him. Basketball starts next week, so lots more reports to come. And the gala is next weekend. I'm pretty excited because both chambers from the community have taken a great interest in this and will be present at the gala. So I'm excited to have the support of the businesses in our community. So I hope to see the rest of you there.
Harvey?
No report.
John?
No report.
All right, mine. I'm going to nominate John Russell to serve on planning. The outside, he's going to come off public relations with that, but at least gives another citizen for planning. So that's so. A motion second to approve John Russell to Planning Commission. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll get somebody to replace him on PR.
Pat, is he going to stay on ordinance then?
An ordinance, I'm sorry. He's going to stay until I find someone to replace him.
Is he up? Did you put him on the police commission?
No, he's on ordinance.
I feel like he showed up at LEC one night.
He did, he showed up at LEC, but I think he had his committees mixed up.
Yeah. He said it was a nice meeting, but
Yeah.
it was the wrong one.
All right, Lee,
No report.
Matt,
No report.
Aaron? All right, we will, communications miscellaneous, consider the approval of vouchers.
Motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
Got a first and second to approve the vouchers as presented. In a discussion, I just have one thing, Lee, is I see the Coyle Legal. Is that fence related?
Yes, primarily. Fence and enforcement of everything that he's promised that he would do.
Is that reimbursable off his letter or his line, or?
Yep.
Okay.
That's reimbursable from him. If he doesn't pay it, then it would come off the letter. Yep.
The only question I had. Any other discussion?
I have one. On page 2, in the middle, the Department of Administration, October fines and forfeitures. What's that?
Page 2 or
Page 2.
page 3?
Is it?
Oh, it's page 2, I'm sorry, it is page,
It's page
It's
2.
the,
two page ones.
Page 1.
Page 2 is different. That's the October fines and forfeitures, 11/18/69.
the- all the money that the police bring in, a large portion of that goes to the county, a large portion goes to the state, and we keep a little
It's-
portion.
Okay, so this is the portion we don't get to keep.
Yeah.
Alex, when we stop someone,
Yeah,
and
no,
there's all
I
these
get
little add-ons.
Everyone's got their hand in it.
Well,
Except-
that's one way, but yes,
Except for chief.
right,
Yeah.
I don't get anything.
No,
right.
And then I guess the only other one is, back up one page, is thanks for fixing the thermostats so that it's comfortable in here during the meetings.
Well, it hasn't been.
The reprogrammed thermostats for a meeting room, hopefully that was this
Yeah.
one. Yeah, okay.
70 degrees outside, that's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's it.
All right, any
That's all I
discussion? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Future agenda items? That we will go into closed session, my favorite part. The Village of Cottage Grove Village Board will enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. Administrator's evaluation process and pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public property, investing in public funds, conducting other specified business, whatever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Negotiate terms for potential vote in intent number 6 by Horizon Development Group.
Second.
Roll call.
Kyle Bloom,
Aye.
Jack Henrik,
Aye.
Alex Christensen,
Aye.
Jennifer Pickle, Harvey Potter,
Aye.
John Williams,
Aye.
Pat McAfee.
Aye. We're in closed sessions.